Welcome to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. This is the Thursday night, and that'd be great if you could bring some of this your Sashiko project to stitch together. This is the live streaming where I stitch Sashiko while talking about some Sashiko stories. This is not a tutorials. This is not a live lecture. It's not really something that I teach. So please do not ask the technical questions. There are tons of information already on the YouTube. I would like to focus on the cultural or story side of the Sashiko. And that being said, I will move on to the actual stitching. But before that, I would like to make two announcements. One is the in-person workshop coming this October 6th to 8th. I'll show you that. In Auburn, New York, I will be having the in-person workshop for 3 days. That's going to be October 6th to like this. This is one good opportunity to learn Sashiko, and I don't think I will offer that in 2013 besides this one. So if you are nearby, please consider that. For those who cannot reach, who is far from the New York Auburn, I do add 5 seat for the online Sashiko class, so this is now available. I don't take much participant for this online class neither. I would like to make sure that everybody gets the enough attention, enough follow-ups to be able to do that. So this is one thing to do it. So I have a two-way to teach the core and essence of Sashiko, and those are two of those. And that being said, we will move everything to the different camera. Just a second. My mouth is not moving well today. Well, not I sometimes realize that English is really the second language for me. Just a second. Okay. Come on, Sakura. Sakura yamete. Sakura yamete. Sakura yamete. Sakura yamete. ちょっと待って。Sakura. Sakura. I need to stitch. Sorry, these are my that's what happens. So let's, oh, by the way, let me check the audio. Okay. I think it's okay. Just a second. Okay. Sakura, please move. No, meow. I don't know if you agree with this, but the cat loves thread and fabric. So whenever I try to stitch, she comes and Sakura, can you move, please? Can you please move? What's going on today? What's going on? It's not your live streaming today. It is not your live. Whoa. What is that? It's not your live streaming today. Come. Can you please? Bye. Okay, I will start stitching. I brought some topics, so I would like to talk about that as well. Thank you so much for waiting. Are cats the core and essence of Sashiko? Not exactly. I wouldn't say not related at all. Well, I would say that it's not related at all. It's not really related. You don't have to have a cat to understand what Sashiko is. But maybe Sakura had some topics for us. Maybe. She's quite jealous. And she sheds a lot. Yeah, DB is right. She says that she wants to my attention. Like, every time I focus on something, she really wants my attention. Like, how could you ignore me while I'm here? Now she's sleeping right next to me, so she knows what is the limit. So she's not gonna, cross the line. But at the same time, if she has a chance, whenever she has a chance, she tries to be over on top of that. So let's see what I brought a topic today saying like not knowing is okay. It sounds like contradicting to what I usually say, but I like to make sure that I state this. I don't want anybody to be afraid of not knowing. So there are many people who cares of they care for using the word of Sashiko, and they try to learn more. But in order to enjoy Sashiko, they don't have to know everything. I mean, in fact, I don't know everything. So I don't want you or they to be worried about it too much. It's simply lack of information. It's not like lack of willingness, it's lack of the available information. So not knowing itself it can be improved, but it's not something we have to change. Intentionally ignoring is something I have to fight back. But like not a pure ignorance. I don't know what is the word for that. But not knowing itself is not a problem at all for me. We can learn together. So that's something I kept wondering about it. At the same time, this has another side, the other like flip of the coin. Don't be afraid of not knowing means that don't pretend to know everything. When we start thinking that we know everything about one issue, then that might be problematic. So try to imagine that there would be something else, because it is not, especially if it's not your culture. Try to not to define the answer. Don't be afraid of not knowing, but please be careful with defining the answers without checking with the people from the origin is probably a really good idea. At the same time, they are not expert in that. They might be from that culture, but they are not always the expert in that field. For example, in terms of Sashiko, you can ask any Japanese about Sashiko, and you can, of course, get the information from them, the confirmation, or ask for the agreement, and that's perfectly fine. That's valid. At the same time, they might not be the expert, or they might not be well experienced in Sashiko, so their words are valuable as the Japanese, but their word might not be applicable as the Sashiko practitioner. So not knowing is fine. Just I would like to make sure that, especially the people who are not here, people who are here will not say that they know about Sashiko, but those who think they know about Sashiko enough to teach or share or teach others, it does not have to be like, workshop or. So teaching does not always be the case of teaching in the workshop or class or in those settings. Teaching others on the social media can be a form of teaching. It might not be paid, they might not be paid for doing that, but that's a process, that's the action of spreading the insufficient information. So that will be counted as teaching for some cases. So, the message, the first message sounds like a little bit contradicting because I keep saying, like, please learn more, please acknowledge more. So, not knowing is okay sounds a little bit contradicting, but the message is the same. Please keep learning. Please keep listening to the stories from the Japanese people about Sashiko so that we can really find the. It's not like the answer. It's ongoing answers, ongoing feedbacks. The answer becomes different over time. So, and you can always have your own answer. So don't worry about it too much. At the same time, please worry if you think that you know everything about Sashiko, which probably you don't do it here, so somewhere else. Well, you might wonder why I am talking like this today. Well, I don't know if you are on the Facebook, but Facebook is a place where it can be quite ugly. Instagram can be pretty ugly too, but Twitter is it's kind of difficult to be on Twitter because the amount of writing I can do is very limited until recently, and I don't plan to pay the money for that to get a longer writing. Not many people read that on Twitter. Instagram is a great place for me because I have already the kind of stage and platform. And YouTube is great for me to chat with you, share my thoughts without any editing, without any second thoughts. Like, I just say it here and I don't edit it. So what I say is what I say, and what I say is what I do. But Facebook can be quite scary place, and I often explain how I found out the cultural appropriation issue in 2019, and that was also on Facebook. And that was I probably can say that it happened in the same group. On the Facebook, there's a very, very nice, not a nice, very big, it is nice. It's a very big group called Sashiko. And I had a pleasure to talk to the admin of that group, and she has been doing that for 10 years or so. She did not expect that Sashiko will be this much trend. So she did not plan to make it that big, but she is doing such a great job. I respect her for keeping that group available to everybody. But sometimes I get summoned. Sometimes they tag me. Sometimes they share my informations. They refer, they as the member, copy and paste my stories. And because of Domestika, I get notification a lot recently from that group. And my intention is not to be there because I don't want to engage in those nasty discussions. But I happen to be there once now. So I would like to this might explain what I often say. that's like I often say that Sashiko introduced in English is not wrong, but insufficient. And there are people who thinks that there is nothing wrong with appropriating the culture. And it's not imaginary things in my brain. It is the reality. And discussion itself is quite interesting. You get a lot of comment from many people, and Facebook kind of amplify that difference. Many people get defensive, and many people try get defensive, emotional. I think, in fact, I would like to hear. I would like to know how you would think but after reading those discussions. And I made a comment. I tried to make a comment on that, like share my standpoint, not like argue. I'm not gonna argue there. It's more like my understanding of the current situation, and I don't go back there because I don't want to read anything aggressive or anything painful. So it's quite. It might not be fair, but at the same time, in order to be fair, I believe that we have to really do the discussion in Japanese if that's what they are trying to get. So I will share that group. So if you are interested in that, please take a look at how the majority of the people in Sashiko react. Unfortunately, you are probably in the minority group in Sashiko. If you are here, you're probably in the very minority side. It might be a majority side in Japan, but in the big trend of Sashiko in English, you being here explain that you are in the minority, the very small group or small ideas. I will share the link. So if you have a look, I don't know if you have to have a Facebook account to go to the Facebook. But if you go to the Facebook, you will find. I don't want to show here. Just a second, okay? If you go to Facebook, you can find this Japanese Sashiko group. And this is the group I am the admin. And there's a huge amount of reading materials as the group guideline. There's a very strict, I wrote very extremely strict group guideline in this group. So if one does not follow, it get really deleted almost immediately. So please read that if you'd like to join that. Make sure to not to make any post or ideally not comments when you ask for when you request the participation. Do not make a comment, or especially the post. Do not make a post because I delete and I reject those requests because I get so much spam every day that I just remove it. If I see that there's a comment or post under that request, I delete it. So please do not make a comment, just request, and then I will edit you to there. And on that group, I think anybody can see that without the being a member of that. There is a link to the bigger group. This is the bigger group I mentioned about Sashiko, and this has been a very active group. And I as much as I do not agree some of the discussions or some of the photos here, it has been a very good. I respect what is happening here. So just try to read the comment here, and it will probably explain a lot of things that I often talk about. Where is my comment? Oh, there we go. I have my comment here. So you can also read that. So this is one group I would like to explain today, and it's another like good reading materials on what is going on. I don't want you to define the answer. I don't want you to make a judgment. I just like you to try to learn what you think from the other side of the trend. If you are here quite often, your opinion, your understanding may be a little biased by me, and I am responsible for that, and I'm happy to be responsible about it. At the same time, it is good to learn or observe how the trend goes. It might be sometimes upsetting. If it was upsetting to you, I would like to know what upset you. If it was confusing, I'd like to understand what was confusing. But one thing I really found interesting in that comment was that how can I put this one? So when we talk, the topic itself was about appropriating the culture, and there are tons of different kinds of opinions on that, different kind of comments. Like some people say cultural appropriation is nonsense; it does not exist. The other people say that I have a many Japanese friend and they're okay with that. And the tons of comments to sort of defend or justify what they do, and I think it's perfectly fine for them to enjoy it under one condition, that they try to learn what Sashiko is behind the word. And when we have this kind of discussion, there are always a comment. This is one of the common comments about those issues, that I do have many Japanese friends. I do have a family in Japan. I have a very close friend living in Japan. I have a very sometimes my wife is Japanese, my husband is Japanese, my daughter lives in Japan. Like there are tons of ways to connect themselves to Japan, and they say that the Japanese are okay with the trend in English, which I am okay with that too. I am perfectly fine with the trend of the English and Sashiko in English, as long as they know that it's not whole, it's not enough yet. I never say that trend in English of Sashiko is wrong. It's just not enough. And Wiki Sakura, as the reply to those comments, like many people get kind of satisfied with the other Japanese people's comment, but there was one comment in this discussion that I found very balanced or interesting, that she was, or he, I'm sorry, let's say she was not comfortable with reading that it is okay because the Japanese friends are saying it's okay. Because the Japanese tend to hide their own feeling, especially with like outsiders, and it is difficult, it is dangerous to generalize the opinions based on one group of people. And that's very balanced. And that's probably exactly what I like to do. There are tons of Sashiko in Japan, but for some reason, and that reason can be very, very various, but the trend in English tried to narrow it down to one specific people group. Sorry, one specific group of people, one aspect of the culture, to define what it is. So they're kind of skimming it, or like excluding some of the play unnecessary thing for them, but more like undefined things. And as the result, it is losing the sometimes essence or sometimes non-essence, but it can be essence in the later on. That's why I think my conclusion is that Sashiko introduced in English is not wrong, but insufficient. They are not enough. It's not enough. The Sashiko we practice is not on that. And I think our Sashiko can be the part of the Sashiko culture in Japan. So that's not enough already. It happens because of the power imbalance between English and Japanese. Japanese people don't really discuss about those things even in Japanese, and they do not have the skill, like a language proficiency, to discuss or argue. As the result, their voice gets kind of interpreted in a nicer way. But generalizing their voice is quite dangerous because that is excluding or leaving the other voice behind. And I don't want that to happen. So I was kind of astonished in a positive way that there are people who can think like that. In that group. This might be a little bit biased comment, but those who come to this live streaming, or those who try to read what I write, or those who actually stitch, tend to get to that point relatively easily. Because the more we stitch, the more you feel like, I don't know, probably there's more. Like, wow, it's deeper than I thought. So, like, it is probably dangerous to generalize it. So I am surrounded by those people. And I'm not going to be that much surprised if I hear the same word from one of you, because we communicate well enough to expect that. But I don't know if she knows me before or not, but it was quite surprising to read that balanced comment. It is very important to not to generalize the voice, especially when we talk about those sensitive issues. In fact, one voice that it's painful should be heard. Like, even the 99.9% of the people say it's okay. If 0.1% percentage of the person said that's painful, please stop. We have to think. We don't have to stop. Sometimes the majority decision goes over that. It's not really. After all, majority decision is pretty powerful. So the big movement, it might ignore those voice, but we can listen to that voice. We don't have to follow that, but we should really pick up those voices. And that's the way to solve this issue. Is like, if the person is crying, like if the person is crying for the pain just because, that's probably we have to rethink about it. But if the crying out of the pain has stories or reasons behind it, then we have to listen to that. We cannot minimize somebody's pain. Like, that's the worst thing we can do as a human being, in my understanding. Like, this is something I would never like to do. And if I have done it, if I did it, if I do it, please accuse me. No, I don't want to accuse me, but please point out, because that's quite important for my life. I do not overestimate or underestimate, minimize or exaggerate somebody's feeling. Like, for example, if, let's say, my wife says that I had a very if somebody complains to me that they have a bad life, I used to say that, well, you're not the only one who is suffering, when your life could be worse. And that was my reaction, that you're not only one. You like, we all have the pain too. We all struggle too. So we kind of minimize that voice. And I used to do that a lot because, because that I thought that was true. At the same time, after losing my father and being an immigrant, it is important to listen. We cannot always fix the issue. We cannot always do the right thing or good thing or do what we think we should, but we can at least listen to that. And you are here to listen already at this moment, so it is more than what I ask. But it was very interesting to see those discussions again on the YouTube. Probably the same group. And Adamon is very balanced person, so she probably closed the comment section because she knows it's gonna get super excited. Not excited as like exciting, it's super heated. They write comments each other on their emotions. So I think she shut the comment section to write new comments. But yeah, if you have time, please read there. I have not read every comment, so I might not be a good person to discuss. But if you felt something there, I would like to hear what you felt, and at least that's one way to understand the current right now, today's trend in Sashiko. I talk a lot. I hope that you can hear me. Okay, it's on. I sometimes get scared when I don't see the comments. Is the comment on? I think it's on, right? Just a second. Yeah, it should be on. Whew. So, and the message is simply though. Message is simple. Not knowing is fine. So don't worry about sharing your information with others. You can share what you know, but make sure that you might not know. So knowing that you don't know enough, knowing that we cannot know everything is the key. So don't be afraid of not knowing, but be careful with knowing that we know. I hope it makes sense. Hey. I didn't have much time this week to stage, so it's still the same. But I don't know if I shared this last week, but I kind of made a timeline. I will try to finish this 100-meter Asanoha by the end of this year or by next spring. Hopefully, ideally, wishfully, I wish that I hope that I can finish it by the end of this year. If not, by this spring for sure, so that I can do the mizutoshi and also drying and using it in the summer in the heat. I don't want to do it in the cold winter, which is probably the best time for Sashiko, but it's gonna require a lot of water, and I like to do it in the warm weather. So next summer you will see 100 pieces, not a pieces, 100 meter of this Asanoha stitching. And that's gonna be the time to reveal the whole picture of this project, which I don't have the outcome yet. Just a second. The comment. Can anybody comment? Just comment. To make sure that it's working. Let me check that test. Last time. Okay, it's working. Last time there was like a one live streaming where they kept like a viewer kept writing the comments yet, but I could not read that. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Candida. Thank you, Sachi-san. Thank you. It is okay. Like there's no need for you to write a comment. Just make sure that we're on the same system. Thank you. Whew. Thank you. Yeah. So I often say that to many of my students, but please try to learn the other Sashiko than I teach or I share here. Ideally from the other Japanese teachers, but because of the again language barrier, not that many people are teaching Sashiko. Like not that many Japanese are teaching Sashiko in English. But if you have a chance, especially those Japanese with a lot of like decades of experience, I organized 2 workshops and 1 meeting with the very experienced Sashiko artisans in the Japan tour last spring. But I would like it would be very, very meaningful to learn from other masters or teachers with a lot of experience. Again, it's going to be difficult because of the language issue, but what I teach is not only the answer. It is my answer, it's my style, and I want to be able to do that, but it's just one form. Do young fashionists in Japan have appreciation of Sashiko's history, culture, significance, or do they see it as trendy? I don't think. I'm not really into fashion, so I don't know it, but Sashiko is not in the Japanese fashion at all. And it's too ordinary for us. For Japanese, it's not something to appreciate. It's not something to even worship. It's not something to learn. It's very, very, very boring, ordinary, mediocre for that matter. So they don't really. Some of them are trying to. Some of the sustainable fashion are probably using Sashiko, but not the major brand at all. And many people say that Sashiko is too ordinary for them. It's like can eating the grandma's pasta be trendy at some point in the US? Like eating Subway on the Friday night can be kind of trendy in the US? Probably not. But Subway in Japan is quite fancy. So that's kind of difference when we travel over the culture. Hello, Nana-san. So it's trendy here or in the West, but not in Japan. Sashiko is not in trend in Japan the way we know. Sashiko is getting more popular in Japan, but it is more for the fukin, hana fukin. It's like a small, not a small, but like 34-inch square and wide, and then there's going to be a lot of hitomezashi, like a square, and with a lot of colors. Those are popular as the craft, but it's really not the big culture trend. It's very still minor. It's not a trendy craft like crochet or embroidery. There are millions of books on those topics at the Japanese bookstore. There are books about Sashiko as well, but they're quite limited in terms of the variety. And the way I make hanafukin is a little bit different from the major trend because I don't really do the hitomezashi a lot. Hitomezashi is this type of. I simply don't like it. I mean, it's I don't like it is a bad way to say it. It's not my style. I'm not a big fan of it. This is the hitomezashi, and the current trend of Sashiko in Japan is doing this type of stitching on this small fabric. It's a cotton, like it's for the dishcloth or wiping things, and that has been a trend since 2010, 13. There's a teacher called Kondo Sensei who published a book about that, and that became quite big. But the way I do Sashiko has been covered by a lot of secrets, and they did not want to share that. And that is why I have many Japanese students too. Not a student anymore, they're better than me, so I'm not gonna call them student, but there are requests for me to teach in Japanese as much as that in English. So it is ordinary for us. At the same time, we forgot that ordinary. We decided to not to pass it down to the next generation. That was the Japanese decision to kind of forget about it, to kind of erase it from the history. I happen to receive it, and there are people who happen to receive it too, but it's not a major line, major stream now. And therefore, some people who like to remember what it was like comes to me and learn that. And it's not only me though. There are a few teachers, masters who try to preserve that, but they're kind of old. At the same times, English is not their strength, or even communication is not their strength. So we have to be careful. We have to be respectful for that. We don't know the whole picture of Sashiko at all. I don't even know. I think I know 10%, 20% of the whole picture. I know everything about what I do. I mean, of course, we gotta know what we do. But that's the Sashiko we practice. But there's so many other things, different and categorized in that. And I just don't want to leave anybody behind. And it's just super idealistic, unreal wish, because at some point I will probably miss it. And I may have missed it already. I don't know. But at least I would like to try my best to include everybody possible. So that's why it's not really the cultural appropriation issue. It's more like, how can I introduce the culture properly in the trend that, let's say, Western or the non-Japanese people made in English to market their business or what they do outside of Japan. So that's why probably my understanding of cultural appropriation is not the same as so-called activists are saying. I'm a little bit worried about what I would say about that, because I am invited to the talk series of appreciation versus appropriation in the cultural topic, and tomorrow is one of those. And tomorrow's guest is the Emi-san from Little Kato Studio. If you'd like to get that, if you'd like to get information, I will post it tomorrow. But tomorrow, no, Thursday, not Thursday, Saturday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, they will have a talk about this issue, and I learned this issue from her a lot. I sometimes do not agree with what she says, but I try to listen to her and I try to understand her from her perspective. After that week, I will be there, but my understanding is very, very limited. And as you know, I say there's no such a thing as cultural appropriation in Sashiko. Many people attack me, there's no such a thing as cultural appropriation in Sashiko when they talk about cultural appropriation. But yeah, my point is, yes, I agree. I agree that this culture, there's nothing that we can appropriate about it. But we shouldn't change it without proper understanding. So there's no such a thing as cultural appropriation in Sashiko, as long as one acknowledge the stories behind it. If they ignore the story, if they ignore the Sashiko before it changes, then that's not even a change. That's not even appropriation. That's like a murdering the culture. It might sound a bad wording choice, but it's more like erasing the culture. And I cannot let that happen. Culture can be erased. In fact, culture will be erased in many, many cases. But it cannot be done like this. It cannot be, at least I am doing it and I can speak up, so I will not let that happen. So that's why I don't know if I can make a good discussion about it, because their topic is appreciation versus appropriation. I don't know what I would say. Well, there's gonna be an interviewer, so she's gonna provide me the list of questions, so I will prepare that. But that's a very complex issue, and in my understanding, culture changes. So if I don't believe that a culture doesn't change, if I do not believe that the culture doesn't change, I wouldn't be sharing this. Like, as you can imagine, sharing this on YouTube unedited is quite risky, and from somebody's perspective, it's stupid. It's too vulnerable to do that in today's world. But this is okay for me to leave the form or practice before the change. At least this form will be somewhere left so that they can come back to it. So let's see what we can do. The world is moving to the way they think they know everything, but we gotta check what we can do. And one day I can explain fully why I'm doing this project. I'm trying my best to explain why I'm doing this little by little, because I don't have like a blueprint of what I'm trying to say. But one day I hope that I can verbalize why I am doing this stupid project. I don't know how many people are here from very, very first live streaming, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It was not regular. It was not regular at all. I sometimes did it on the Instagram. I sometimes did it on the YouTube. Sometimes both language, sometimes just English, sometimes just in Japanese. It was very irregular. And it was quite difficult for me to talk about something for 1 hour as like my personal mumbling. I'm talking to my camera, and sometimes I get a comment so I can read it out and I can answer that. At the same time, in order to make a live streaming, like a radio station, radio program, it is important for me to have some topics or something to say within myself without reaction. And I couldn't do that 4 years ago, even 3 years ago. There should be somewhere the archives, but I get sometimes very quiet, like completely quiet, and I get like discouraged to do the live streaming in English, and then decide to not to do it again. Come back, do it. Come back, do it. After COVID, I decided to make it more consistent. That's like a big commitment for me to do. More like a assignment for myself to get better at this. And it has been going, I think, okay for now. So one day, I hope I can visualize or written down or somewhat manifest, not a manifest. Oh, 具現化 manifestation, something to make it. One day I can summarize it as the book or as the episode, or like I don't know what it is, but I think my English is getting better and better by doing this. Although the pronunciation itself is not really improving, but my Japanese pronunciation is not that great neither, so that's probably not the I can try. I'm really not good at speaking in Japanese neither. I have a lot to say, but my mouth does not move well. Okay, has been 55 minutes. I really appreciate you being here for listening. And if you're listening to this as an archive on the YouTube channel, and if you have any questions about Sashiko culture or Sashiko story, please write a comment. I usually do not reply to the comment, but I read them, and if the comment is something I can reply, I will bring that to the next live streaming. And today is the second day that my daughter went to school, and things are catching up. I am in the mode. I am shifting. I'm changing my mode. I am changing my. I think it's a mode. To more like a working father condition. So I should be able to do little more live streaming, like little longer live streaming starting next week. I don't have to make dinner. I mean, I don't have to make lunch too, because the summer camp is over. But I hope that I can do a little longer than 1 hour and keep stitching. After this much thread, I will sign off. But before that, if there's anything that I can answer to you, questions or Sakura is gone, so she moved on. Cat moved on. Cat moves on pretty fast. My Sakura is really Sakura asks for the attention, but sometimes when I ask attention, she does not give me that. She comes here whenever she wants to, but whenever I want her, she does not come. I think it's all the cat thing, but like when I want to hug her, she just runs away. It's so unfair. Yes. Yes, I made an announcement. In-person workshop on October 6th to 8th, and also the online class is available right now for the month of August and September. And what else? I think I have shared everything. Cats never worry about being people's pleasure. Yeah, that's what cat is all about, I guess. Cat. Well, she's quite damaged, so she was she was abandoned, rescued cat. That's what we call, I guess. She was rescued, so she has a little bit of trauma or issues with people. So I hope she trusts me, but I think that's what cat decide. Okay, two more lines, I guess. I don't want to do this anymore, to be honest, though. it's a little too much. So if you decided to do the 100-meter of the same pattern, as much as I say that pattern doesn't matter, the Sashiko is not about pattern. You might want to think about that too. Like there's a limit. It is true. I truly believe that Sashiko is not about pattern, but there's a bit of limit for that. Like one can say that I can eat pizza every day for years. Probably you might wanna they might wanna rethink about it. Really, only pizza. But that's not a good analogy, anyway. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming today again. Yeah, this archive will be on the YouTube, and any feedback about what is going on in today's Sashiko will be appreciated. I would like to understand how the mindset, Western mindset, functions in that discussion. And yeah, like as much as I get frustrated, as much as I get kind of pain for that matter, I would like to try my best to understand from the different side. All right, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good night. I will see you next Thursday. Bye bye.